I'd like to welcome everyone to the museum and encourage you all to take your seats so we can get started with these afternoon's activities. Thank you so much. Good afternoon and welcome to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. My name is Janelle Hope and I serve as the Caterpillar Curator of Innovation and Entrepreneurship here at the museum. I also served as a lead curator for the current exhibition that we have on display in our Bank of America gallery entitled At the Vanguard, Making and Saving History at HBCUs. It is my absolute pleasure again to welcome you here this afternoon for our screening of Our Blues Make Us Gold by filmmakers Brandon and Ashley Dees. This year, our museum commemorates 100 years of Negro History Week and Black History Month celebrations, as well as America's 250th year of independence and our own museum's 10th anniversary. Part of the effort in recognizing these significant milestones is underscoring the integral work HBCUs have played in shaping Black history, which of course is American history. If you haven't had a chance to see At the Vanguard yet, I highly encourage you to do so. There are several major themes throughout the exhibition that are also underscored in today's talk, in today's discussion, as well as in today's film. The first, HBCUs have long been at the forefront of educating African American students and Black people writ large. HBCUs have been at the vanguard of serving their communities. HBCUs have long been critical sites of knowledge production and innovation. And HBCU students have always been on the front lines of social justice, helping to move the needle of change forward. Like several of the HBCUs highlighted in the exhibition, North Carolina A&T is also a federally recognized 1890 land-grant institution, meaning that as part of their mission, they have a duty to provide essential research, education, and extension services rooted in agriculture and technical training for farmers and their surrounding communities. This documentary highlights this important history among other integral areas of work. I also would like to take this moment to recognize one of NCA&T's most renowned alumni, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, whom we lost earlier this week. He was a civil rights icon, a human rights humanitarian worker, and someone who reminded us as Black people that we indeed are somebody. Finally, this documentary also serves as a testament to the many memory keepers, the archivists, and the librarians that have worked tirelessly to collect and document the history of HBCUs. It is their collections and their work that are highlighted through the At the Vanguard exhibition, as well as included in the archival footage featured in this film. I'd like to close by sharing the words of Spelman College's archivist, Holly Smith. She says, HBCUs center the stories of people of the African diaspora and have been intentional about not perpetuating ideologies about scarcity or deficiency in Black history. Rather, they reveal the abundance of Black intellectual work, creativity, and culture. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Our Blues Make Us Gold. Thank you.
Okay, we're good. All right, well, good evening, everyone. Okay, so before we start our lovely conversation, you know what I came here to hear. Aggie Pride. Aggie Pride. Yes, all right, all right. Well, I am pleased to be speaking on this lovely panel with the wonderful filmmakers of this beautiful, I would say, love letter to North Carolina A&T University. Yes, yes. Okay. Well, my name is Dr. Ashley C.J. Daniels. I serve as an assistant professor for another land-grant HBCU, the University of the District of Columbia. And I am just so happy. Yes. Okay. Yes. Please, please. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Yeah, so we are just, so excited to sit here and, talk with you all about what the motivation was. So all of the filmmaking process for this wonderful piece that we have. So the first question I would like to ask is that out of all the subjects that you all chose, why did this one call out to you the most?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. It really honestly was what bothered me the most at the time. That's in all honesty. At the time, I was working on a TV show in a writer's room, and we were introducing new characters to the show. And that particular day, we were deliberating over like where her school was going to be, where was she educated. And so I raised my hand and said, oh, she should definitely go to an HBCU. And the comments were really, really negative, really snarky, just really ignorant. And it was just something that I couldn't shake. And it was that thing, and they say as an artist, like that thing that bothers you the most, like that's what you should go do. And so thankfully, I have a husband that I think is even a better artist than I am, and so I went home and was able to talk to him about it, and then, the rest, it got an engine behind it at least.
Yeah, I would agree with that fully. I call Ashley Toni Morrison Jr., and Toni Morrison says, when I get angry about things, and then I go on and work. And so I think that is really the responsibility and role of an artist, that if you get angry about something, then through your art, find out a way to give your perspective about it, and hopefully it can bring about some awareness and hopefully change.
Oh, that's beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so you all work as a duo. So, there's a lot of co-writing, co-producing. How does that dynamic work? So how are we, making this wonderful picture happen?
I think quite naturally, when you are used to working individually as an artist, you have to kind of find your groove with another person. And so it was definitely a couple years, I would say, until we kind of could find our lane of like, okay, no, you're in my lane. Okay, I'm in yours. I'm stepping on your toes, that kind of thing. But I think over time, really, the respect has risen, where there are just some things that I can do, but I'm not great at them in the way that Brandon is, and vice versa. And so first, it was really kind of finding that of like, okay, this is really where you shine and so forth. But I guess more technically speaking, usually from ideation, that's either something from real life, in this case, something that really got under my skin, and then it's a conversation. A lot of times the writing, so some of the writing and stuff that you see in the film, that's usually my department. As far as hiring the crew, I would say we both share in that. I take an approach more from probably personality. I kind of hire people based off of, okay, who can vibe well within who we have. Brandon's responsibility in that is more of a technical thing. And so, yeah, really finding like the balance. There are certain, even conversations with the talented, the talent in the film that we interviewed. Depending on what the subject matter was or who it was, we kind of decide, okay, Ashley, you should talk to that person, or Brandon, you should talk. So it's really like a balancing act, I think. So.
Agreed. And then you also have to think about the context of the times we were living in. COVID had us all locked in. And so, this idea of starting a production company and then 6, 7 months later, the world shuts down. And so, we're glad that we had something to, work towards. And I think it, ultimately created a lot of colorful conversation around the house, for sure.
Right, absolutely. So I want to dig in a little bit more in terms of like the research process for all of this. So I'm very curious, so when you were doing the research for the project, what were some of the resources that you tapped? Like I see that you have Jelani Favors, who wrote a masterful book, which Professor Privilege here. It's a great pairing with what you have in this film. So the book is called Shelter in the Time of a Storm. And so I'm curious, what history did you look at? If there were any books that you incorporated, what was the research in doing all of this?
Well, first and foremost, the Men's at Manus book really kind of helped set the foundation and create a through line for us. We're very thankful to Dr. Teresa Jo Stiles and Valerie Neiman, who really kind of helped us anchor this because they have so much history about the institution. In conjunction with that, what we wanted to do when we set this out, we knew that we wanted the HBCU community to support it and to watch it, of course. But we wanted it to have a global stage. We thought, okay, well, everyone should see this because everyone should know about the power and the greatness that comes out of this institution. So we researched as well what was happening in the world at this point in time while this was happening on campus. So that was one of the things that we did. Trying to think what else.
We definitely had a foothold at the library with all of the historians there. So special shout out and thanks to the Bluford Library on campus. James Stewart is really an unsung hero. And just like Ashley spoke to, the 2015 book, Men at Manus, was a just incredible volume that Chancellor Harold L. Martin, Chancellor Emeritus Harold L. Martin had commissioned. And so that really set the basis. And so we put, inspired by Men's at Manus, that book that Dr. Teresa Jo Stiles and Valerie Neiman put together, but really working closely with historians and advisors to really just tell us what we didn't know. And that was a lot. So that was invaluable to us.
Okay, very good. Another professor. How many undergraduates do I have in the room? If you could raise your hands. Do I have any? A couple? Okay. I wanted to impress upon you all. I really wanted to get into that because, in the classroom, often you have young people that really want to react, but I also emphasize, as a professor, you also must do your research. So, I hope that this conversation helps in guiding that idea of reaction is good, but research is needed. So, okay, so also, now, speaking again a little bit more about the process, so A&T has a rich 135-year history. What was the process of consolidating it into 140 minutes?
So that's the interesting part. So our Blues Make Us Gold originally started as a 4-part series, and we were dedicating it to different areas of study. So you have agriculture, you have STEM, you have the School of Business, you have sports and entertainment. And so, there was also like a civil rights component in there as well. So really, it's way more than 140 minutes. But, it was one thing, it was a network consideration where, we had to try to tell the whole story in condensed fashion with the hope that we will release more of the volumes later. So, yeah.
So what were some of the most surprising moments of the film for you? So, of course, this is like such a beautiful project, a labor of love. But, of course, if you're doing any kind of project, whether it's art, whether it's research, there's always something like, oh, I didn't think of that before. What was some of those moments for you?
Well, we didn't anticipate COVID, so I think that was probably the most surprising one. I think what was interesting about it too, I mean, while we were, producing a documentary, real life was happening for us at the same time too. People always ask, well, how long did it take to make this documentary? And I always just tell them, listen, when we started, I wasn't a mother, and by the end, I had 2 children. So a long time. So I think going into it, we both could say we knew it wouldn't be easy, that it would definitely be difficult. I just didn't anticipate how much opposition we would face. Just whether, obviously things out of our control, but a global pandemic, life happening, in our own families. We experienced death during the time of our families, 2 babies, those kind of things. So yeah, I think just life be lifing,
What about you, Brandon?
I'm not sure that there was anything surprising. I would say that the thing that I guess was reaffirmed was that idea of the HBCU love, that whole community, of the 107, really shone through. Because, one thing that we cared about in having not attended an HBCU was that we wanted to make sure that our crew was filled with HBCU alumni, grads, or students. And so, our composer, Willard Hill, was Howard U grad, HU. Tia P, who did the song when you see the parade sequence at the beginning, the homecoming sequence, and the facts, her song is in there, also a Howard University grad. And then one of our editors went to Southern, Ron Grubb. So, we really wanted to make sure that we surrounded ourselves with people that could lend that authenticity of what the HBCU experience is like. So it just reaffirmed that the HBCU love is strong all over the world.
Yes, absolutely. So a question I have for you, Brandon, but then also for you, Ashley. So I see that Mr. Dees is also in, or Dees, yes, Mr. Dees. I'm assuming that is your father.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Yes. So we have. So when I was, doing some background research about the film and just about, the connection, one of the things that I really loved about it was how your father is an A&T graduate, and how that almost kind of set the tone for how you were going, about this movie and how you were thinking about that. Kind of sharing, a little bit of my background, why I have a Coppin sweater on, is that Coppin is where I first fell in love with HBCUs. So my mother actually is an assistant professor there, but she started her job when I was 5 years old. And so when I was 5 years old walking on that campus, I literally, for all of my life, have always walked HBCU campuses. That then turned into, me going to Bowie State University. Then that turned into me going to Howard University. And now, I'm presently working at a HBCU by choice. And so what I wanted to get from you, and knowing, what that childhood is like with somebody that is in the HBCU space, what was the moment that you fell in love with the HBCU tradition, if at all?
I think the first introduction that I had to A&T had everything to do with homecoming. Once you feel that energy and realize that there's no place quite like a homecoming experience in an HBCU, and specifically A&T, yeah, you get that bug, you get that fire. So, I go back. I have been with a camera since I was probably 10 or 11 years old. And I go back and look at some of the footage that I shot, and my dad was always wearing an A&T sweatshirt or a shirt or some piece of A&T merch. And so I think there was some subliminal stuff going on that I didn't even quite realize. And yeah, I would say it was homecoming, and just, the pride of our people that go to HBCUs, and the pride that exists at North Carolina A&T is really, really second to none. And so it's infectious. You get that feeling.
Ashley, do you have a love story for HBCU space?
You know what? One thing I will say about North Carolina A&T, I've gone to maybe not a lot of homecomings, but I've been to several, and I've never felt more welcomed at any HBCU other than A&T. I've not to say any names or anything, but you know, sometimes you can go and they, you know, they're like, okay, it's cool, you're here, but you're not one of us, kind of thing. But A&T doesn't make you feel like that. It really makes you feel like, no, you belong too, cousin, come on in. And so I always felt welcomed, yeah.
Absolutely. And I can also attest to that. So for 2 years, these past 2 years, I actually was living in the University of California, Irvine, as part of a fellowship. And I was, you know, this is my first time going all the way to the West Coast as a Baltimore girl, all by myself. And when I got to campus, one of the first people that, you know, welcomed me, that looked out for me, was an A&T graduate, Imani Randolph. So Imani Randolph, you know, took care of me. She said, hey, you good? You know, you need to go someplace. So I can, you know, attest to that love that, you know, A&T does. So good job, y'all. Good job. Okay, so what was your favorite moment filming the project?
For me, conversations. That's honestly like my favorite part of being a producer, is just the people that we meet. And you know, just special shout out to the cast that's a part of this. I don't know if any of them are here today, but I'm just so appreciative of those people that not only lent their time, but gave us their vulnerability. You know, because some of the subject matters that they're talking about aren't easy subject matters to, you know, call to your remembrance. And so those were my favorite parts. And even, I'll pick out two specifically, or actually, yeah, two. Dr. Teresa Jo Stiles, she was quite difficult to get, you know, and even when I finally got her on the phone, she almost kind of like pushed me away, like, I'm not gonna be what you need, I don't know if I remember anything, I don't know, like it was just a long list. And you know, Brandon was saying, oh, I don't know if this is gonna work out, but she agreed, she went to do it. And I mean, like, the minute we called action, I was like, yes, this was exactly what we needed. And why did you talk so, you know, negatively about yourself? She's wonderful. So that was a surprise, I will say. Who else? The Moses brothers. They really are wonderful people. They're really warm people. And I don't even think I've ever told them this at the time, but at the time, like, speaking to them and talking to them meant a lot to me personally. I had just lost my grandparents, and my grandfather, the type of men that they are, remind me so much of my grandfather. And so they were just so warm, so vulnerable. And actually, well, both of them, actually, we had to interview them both remotely. Yeah. And you can't tell, right? The vulnerability that they gave, it just did my heart well. And also special thanks to our associate producer and DP at the time, John Jordan, who was like a champion, who we were literally on our iPhone FaceTiming. I have probably a baby in one hand and one in my stomach, and I'm FaceTiming, like looking at the shots. And John went out to Rich Square to where Mr. Ben Moses was, and he just said, okay, hey, here's my farm. We can talk. And you know, that they just really let us in. And so that was my favorite part.
I would say my favorite part, and my wife would agree with this, was getting it done.
Hallelujah, thank you.
Dad can attest to that as well. But I do think the generational aspect of what we tried to present, when setting out to make films, I think I always wanted to do something that, or create something that I could watch with my grandparents and something that I could watch with my children. And I feel that, we tried to achieve that with our Blues Make Us Gold. And so when there's something of transformative when a child can see what a strong black woman astronaut looks like. There's something transformative about when, you can see a family farming empire, really, right? There's something transformative about seeing a chancellor, seeing a very successful businessman in corporate America. So all of those images come together to really show just the brilliance and the wide breadth of our people. And so I think that's always going to be my favorite part of it.
Okay. Well, one, I will also say that the interview with the Moses brothers was probably my favorite part as well. Somebody that, does work around community engaged research, hearing their story was very, raw. It was very authentic, and I appreciated you all capturing that. So, thank you for that. I also wanted to talk about the role of the external community. So as we know, North Carolina A&T, as well as, the larger HBCU traditions, it's not always about what's going on the campus, but then also the support from the surrounding campus. So I'm curious to hear, as you all were, filming this, what sense do you get of the role of the external community to the A&T or just like HBCUs in general?
I would say real life example like this. I mean, I'm a part of the external community. I'm not, an Aggie, but I think utilizing your voice, in that time, in that moment, I was able to advocate, hey, this character that we're putting on the silver screen should be an HBCU grad. It looks like that. It looks like maybe at your job, if you have some type of authority to say, hey, I'm actually going to choose, a candidate that's a graduate from an HBCU. I think it's advocating in whatever way in your corner of the world that you can, of course, donating. But there's so many other ways that you can donate, other than, monetarily. You can, speak out. You can suggest, I think I've really been surprised throughout this process. Over the summer, we were in Martha's Vineyard at the Martha's Vineyard African American Film Festival, and I was just surprised of how many people that came up to us that, never attended an HBCU, didn't know a whole lot about HBCUs, and said, oh, you know what, my son, I'm going to have him look in A&T or an HBCU in general, So I think, advocating in whatever way you can.
Definitely agree. I think it's also about thinking about where all of our HBCUs sit. A lot of times they are in communities that I know that one interview in there spoke to East Greensboro has food deserts, right? And so I do think it's really about understanding that the work is done in the surrounding area. It's like you can't just be in a cocoon necessarily at when you go to school. It's just about understanding the community that's around you and really extending a hand and making sure that we're working together to all lead towards something better for us all.
Absolutely. And yeah, sharing in that. That was also where I found myself on Coppin's campus. So Coppin State University, if you're not familiar, it's a HBCU that's in Baltimore, Maryland, and it's in the heart of Baltimore City. And so another part that I learned or I've come to appreciate about the HBCU tradition is how the HBCU sustains the community in a sense. So similar to what you're saying about, A&T being surrounded by, places that have food deserts, and then they have, a beautiful farm that can help in sustaining the community. Coppin State, my mother is being a nursing professor there. I remember, back back in about the 90s or so, where they were talking about building a community medical center. Well, not a medical center, but it was a community clinic. And, you know, getting the buy-in from the community and getting, you know, them to be on board. So it's not just serving, you know, the students of the university, but it's also serving the greater community. So that was also, you know, something, you know, super beautiful. Okay, so I think we have time for 2 minutes. Okay, cool. All righty. So I will go ahead and do some audience questions. So thank you all that have submitted questions. Or do you have
Dr.
questions?
Daniels, can I
Sure.
just say something really quick?
Oh, sure,
I
go
just
for
wanna
it.
thank you all for coming. Can really quick we have anyone stand that is age 60 or older? Wow. Can everyone give them a hand? This is really, really beautiful. I just want to say thank you on behalf of Brandon and I and generations younger. We really want to thank you all for your service. We understand that every generation is responsible for pushing the next one forward. I know we just lost Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, and while being in this space and when I walked in, just immediately I just felt a weight of responsibility. And I think we all in our own ways have a responsibility, especially in this day and time and what's going on in our history. But a lot of times when our elders pass and they become our ancestors, we become very reflective and thankful, and rightfully so. But while you all are here now, we just want to take the opportunity to say thank you, because we know that though we're still in the struggle in some way, we haven't gone through the things that you all have had to face, whether it be segregation or redlining or any of those things. So we just want to say thank you.
Thank you. So here is a question from one of our audience members. So also getting into the process. Was there anything that you left out of the film? How did you decide what does not make the final cut?
To be honest, like, I don't watch the film even backstage. I don't. I've given birth to it, and at this time, it's like, okay, we just can't watch it. But there have been, I feel like, 1,000 versions of this film because there was so much. So I think it got to the point, because after ripping this apart so many different times, we had to separate ourselves from it and just say, from someone coming in blindly that doesn't know us, doesn't know any of these people, how do we make this palpable? How is it easier to digest it? And I think we allowed the heartbeat, really, of the story to just lead it. And so it's kind of like a puzzle piece, really, to like, oh, you know what? This person said this in this part, and this one said this. Actually, we never saw these two people connecting, but it actually does connect. So it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. That's kind of how it felt. But we definitely, obviously, had to leave a lot on the cutting room floor, but it was very, very, very difficult. Yeah.
But thank goodness for YouTube and all of these different platforms that are available now where some of these extended interviews can have a life. So I do think that there is future installments for Our Blues Makers Gold in some form or fashion. So it's like whatever is left on the cutting room floor will most likely be revived for sure.
And to follow up with that, so you said something, Ashley, that, I can appreciate. It is about, building trust within the space. As someone, again, that does a lot of qualitative research, trust building is always, super important. So I'm curious to hear, what was your trust building process with engaging with the subject matter?
I would say it was different depending on who we were speaking with. Sometimes it really took someone kind of teeing up the ball for us. You know, it mattered who was introducing us to the person. Mr. Ben Moses, for example, doesn't do a lot of interviews, and he's usually like, I'm on my farm, you stay over there, I'm over here. But because his brother introduced him, and we had such a good interview with his brother first, that helped. But usually, I would just say, like, with a lot of the conversation piece of it, I'm comfortable having conversations, so I try to make sure that I come in with the best energy possible. I know it sounds simple, but, you know, and I'm genuinely really curious. I just remember as a child, my great-grandmother would always say, Ashley, why do you ask so many questions? But I'm just genuinely curious, and so I think bringing that to it help people feel appreciated and, you know, wanting to be vulnerable and share. I think that's a little part of it. You know, Brandon would do as much explaining and making sure people had, you know, a lot of their questions answered up front, you know, beforehand, to just ask if there was anything they needed before coming to set, that kind of thing. But I think as relaxed as we could possibly be, that helped others kind of relax and be vulnerable.
Yeah, that curiosity goes a long way, and really just being, I think anyone that worked on the film or allowed us to tell their story, we were truly interested. Like, there was no one that is in front of our camera that we're not truly interested in. And so I think that goes a long way. If you want to be a documentarian or tell stories, truly be interested, you know, and the rest will kind of fall into place.
Okay. All right, so someone else asked the question, how will you document other HBCUs in a film? You have to start a series now. My word, not theirs.
There are a lot of people in this room. Look, take this as a canvas or as an example. It is in your hands. We are passing the ball to you. Yeah, I would just say it's not, I would probably say easily this was the hardest project I've ever worked on, which has been really the most rewarding. But yeah, I'm passing the ball on to others too. There's a lot of Aggies in this room. There's many other stories to tell.
I'll say that every HBCU deserves a documentary.
For sure.
And, you know, we will always be a resource in terms of, if you want to know how to do this, we can tell you the highlights, the pain points, and everything in between. You know, it really is a labor of love, a love letter, a sacrifice, where you know, you'll find out a lot about yourself along the way. So, but I definitely would just, you know, double back on every HBCU for sure deserves a documentary, because the material is so rich.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we are out of time. Okay, well, I would like to, you know, thank you all for sharing space and just sharing this beautiful moment, you know, with us. Again, when I saw the film, I was like, oh, this is such, like, you know, a love letter. And I guess to close on that note, I did want to share, you know, some of my reflections and then just close out. So with all of this, it is my hope that this day does more than just inspire us, but I hope that it emboldens us. While celebrating our HBCUs is wonderful, we need to do more. Active support is the true test of such love. That love demands that we wrestle with hard questions, sit with uncomfortable truths, refuse shallow praise in the place of meaningful commitment. It means that we must show up when the spotlight is gone, defend their honor when our spaces are being misunderstood or maligned, and protect their legacy with the same intensity as which we enjoy its fruits. Our HBCUs don't need just cheerleaders. We need stewards, truth tellers, and defenders who understand and honor that through action and not just applause. And I will close with this quote to honor Brother Jesse Jackson, whom we have lost, who was, you know, a distinguished Aggie. It is in struggle and service with our brothers and sisters, individually and collectively, that we find the meaning of life. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.